But, whatever you do it fucking well. That's all. Just do it thorough. Check the name cards, go through every single one of them. And I can tell, Gordon Ramsay actually said something very interesting on the competition shows that he does.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of TRG Talk Digital. In this edition, in this episode, I'm joined by Mr. Victor Burrill. He's the chairman and the founder of BEN, the Business Executive Network here in Vietnam. Welcome, Victor.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you for inviting me. And looking forward to sharing with you today.
Yeah. Now, to start the sharing, I've heard that your other title is the Chief Connecting Officer. Now, I'm a bit curious about that. It's a bit of a different title. Yeah. So could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so in 2019, when we started off, I didn't use the term founder. I didn't use the term chairman. I used the term Chief Connecting Officer because that's what I did. I connected CEOs and general directors and country managers together. And interesting enough, Rick, just before the meeting today, neither you and I knew what our titles were on our business cards. I think you're CEO and founder. I don't remember either. And so I don't even know. I went to see if I had a business card here. I came straight from my office, and I don't. And I'm not even sure it's still on my business card. So that's how important that is to me now. So there you go. So that's and what essentially the title describes what I did.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah.
Okay. Now, could you tell us a little bit about the Business Executive Network? Because maybe some of our listeners have not heard of it yet.
Well, we're a club of CEOs and general directors, senior managers, people that are running companies. We have members that are running quite large businesses. We have ones that are SMEs, and we have ones that are running very large businesses. Some of them have 3,000, 4,000 and above. And we meet in different, what we call peer groups, and we share with each other challenges that we're facing, and we get advice from each other. And so unlike coaching, where you have somebody helping you come up with your own solutions, we ask other people, what would you do in this situation? Or I've got this decision to make, or I've got this meeting, or whatever the problem is. And they find it pretty valuable. Sometimes they might come to a meeting without a challenge, and that's fine. They'll just, learn about what else is going on, and perhaps I'll give some feedback on a perspective. And so that's essentially what we do. We have people speak on different topics, and so it's quite high level. Most of our members have, 20, 25 years senior management experience, similar to you, Rick. I think that would be your category, right? So I remember you in a meeting once, and somebody had money disappear in his company. Well, you're historically an accountant. You get some perspective on that. That same meeting, we had somebody that had a personal issue, a man later in his life that wanted to get advice about how to handle a sensitive situation with his wife wanting to have another child, and he did not. And these are the sort of things that come up. Anything that might affect a CEO's, performance or focus, just to help them make the right decisions or manage situations. Yeah, so there you go.
Now, I think you mentioned that the Business Executive Network started, 2019?
I think, you and I were part of an organization before that, and we were doing that for about 2.5 years. And then I started the Business Executive Network. I think our first meeting was around October 2019. We started off with a networking event at the Le Meridian, actually, at Bamboo Chic. And so we've been going for about 7, nearly 8 years now. So,
okay. Yeah. So how did you get started with with all this?
Well, I knew a lot of CEOs. I wanted to try and meet their needs. I had some experience of doing so. I started off by getting them to meet together, and some of them went better than others, and we just made the meetings more effective. And now what we're finding is that sometimes, depending on the topic and the challenge, sometimes a small group of 7, 8, 9 people in a room is quite a good number. We can, of course, cope with 5 or 6, And if we have 14 or 15 in the room, then that is managed slightly differently. And so I've learnt to meet the needs of executives better through trial and error, if you like. So that's how it started. It's fair to say, like any business or any organization, sometimes you have a bit of imposter syndrome. You just think, gosh, maybe, I wasn't insecure, but I was thinking, I don't know what I'm doing here. Let me learn from the members. And we tried teaching, and that didn't work. You can't teach people of that level. You can share knowledge, and so, but we're getting very high satisfaction levels. We have high renewal levels. I think more than 96, 97% are renewing every year. Some of those obviously don't because they leave the country. It's going from strength to strength. And we're very pleased with the level of executives that want to join us. So that's a bit about how it started and where we're at now.
So why do you do what you do in the first place?
Well, I enjoy it. I enjoy organizing events. We've built up a team that does that. We're forever learning what our customers want. And interestingly enough, the focus was always to meet the executives' needs. Their time is so valuable. If they lack anything, it's not experience, it's not money, it's not what they lack is time. And so if you ever did a meeting that was not worth their time, then that's a bad day. And getting them to come back another time is really, really hard. And so we aim for 9 out of 10. Sometimes we exceed that, sometimes we fall below that. When I say 9 out of 10, doing something that is not too long, that is meeting their needs, and that's what we aim for. And we generally hit that, and we put enormous efforts into it. And on that note, by the way, I was listening to a podcast, not a podcast, it was a YouTube interview with Jeff Bezos. And he started off, as you know, Amazon many years ago, and he started off with the goal of being the most customer-focused business on the face of the planet. And he learned two things. One of them was customers want it quick and they want it cheap. He's often joke he can't imagine in 10 years' time that they'll want it a bit slower and a bit more expensive. And so he knew what his customers wanted, and he does national 2-day delivery, as I understand, and he's trying to keep prices very competitive. And for us, we realize that CEOs want to be able to find their seat very quickly. They want to get into they want to just learn things very quickly. They want to be able to share, and we've got the mix right. We think we generally do 2.5 to 3 hour meetings, and if it's any longer than that, it has to be a damn good reason. Yeah, so we haven't yet done an all-day meeting, and I think that if I did, there'll have to be a very, very good reason. So there you go. We have considered a CEO summit, which might be a day, but we realize that, getting some of our lunches, we have 40, 50, 60 people at a lunch for maybe a speaker or a number of speakers. And at that level, that's a lot of CEOs and general directors. So yeah, we've got to get it right. So there you go.
Okay. What do you like best about what you do?
Well, I have a few things that I've learned over the years. One of them is I am a facilitator and trainer, so I have an idea of how to share knowledge. I used to be an event organizer. I used to own and run a catering business in the UK, so I'm good at organizing events. And so it's using all those skills in the facilitation to organize the right event for the right customer. I've become, so what I enjoy about it, I think it's just meeting the needs. I'm the sort of person that, one thing I've learned is as a young manager, say at 25, 26 years old, I have a lot of highs and lows. And I think you can relate to this, Rick. And when you first get that first job, you get that first promotion, or you win that award or whatever, and you have a rush of an adrenaline, and you're feeling really good about yourself. And then you have a bad day when there's a complaint, or your boss doesn't like what you've done. It's a bad day. I generally don't have those anymore. And if I do, they tend to be, okay, we didn't do so well today. And if we have a really successful event, I go, okay, well, that's expected. And so I go home satisfied that we've done a pretty damn good job. We never have a really bad day, and we never have an amazingly good day because we've planned it so well that we generally hit close to the target. So I treat it more like, this is what I do, this is what people pay me to do, and I do it. And so that's it really. And I do get, I'm very compassionate, very, what's the word? I'm very, I'm incredibly focused on what I do. And people around me know that if they've tried really hard and it doesn't quite hit the target, that's okay. But if they haven't cared, then that's an issue for me. So I really demand that we all do our very best. And so there you go. So does that answer your question in terms of why do I do what I do?
I think we're getting there. Now you mentioned something that I'm a little bit curious about.
Mm-hmm.
You've only doing this bend now for a handful of years, or, a couple of handful of years, and you were mentioning some of the ups and downs of businesses that you owned when you were less mature.
Okay,
I
was younger.
Okay, I wasn't going to say you're old, but
Well, Rick, I think you and I are in the same area. Is that right? I think you've got a couple of years on me. Would that be right?
Possibly.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe you share a little bit of what got you to to where you are now. We heard a bit of your journey at Ben. That's like 7 years, but your career was far more illustrious than just that.
Yeah. Well, I was born in Vietnam in 1968. I was.
That gives it away.
There you go. Which was about 3 years after you. I have no idea actually. I don't remember how old you are, Rick. But there you go.
That's convenient.
And then I moved to the UK. I have a Vietnamese mother, a British father, an English father, and I grew up in Worcestershire in the Midlands of England. And when I finished my school, I went to work with the Roux brothers, which are two very well-known chefs. They're French chefs, and they had what we'll call Michelin-star restaurants, 3-star restaurants. And in England at the time, 3-star was the highest level. And there was only 2 3-star restaurants in England at the time, and they owned both of them. So they're the highest standard of cuisine. And I worked in that environment, and it was pretty intense. You had to really be passionate and committed, and and at the end of your 6-day week, you needed that day off to recover. And I found it hard. And then I left there and I went into event management. I got a job as an event manager. I decided the kitchen was not good for me and I was not suited for it. Interesting enough, I got offered a job just after my apprenticeship with the Dorchester Hotel, which is a 2-star restaurant at the time. A very famous chef was running that, and then I decided I wanted to go into management. So I had a training management position, and very soon I was running events, and then eventually I started my own catering business. It started off with really people asking me to do parties and events, small dinner party or lunch, and they got bigger and more elaborate, and I decided to move into that full time, and I gave up my day job and started doing that, and they were okay, and then got better and better and better. And I hired people that had more expertise than me, and eventually we were doing some really stunning events. I mean, big dinners at polo clubs, and there was people like the Wolf family. I remember doing a reception for the Queen once for a client of ours called the Order of St. John's, which is the parent organization behind St. John's Ambulance, and we did things for the Royal County of Berkshire Polo Club, and just bigger and more elaborate events. And the first ones were okay, and then they got better and better. And I think one of the things I learned is that I was really good at taking on a challenge and going, I'm going to do this. I remember there was a dinner I did once for 500 people. It was in the garden of someone's house, so he was obviously a wealthy man. And It was a charity dinner. He wanted to raise money for charity. He spent a lot of money on it. People did argue, why didn't he just give the money to charity? And it was in the middle of, I think it was in Surrey. It was an hour and a half from London, and we had to take out, 60, 70 service staff, 12 event managers to cover different parts of it, a team of 15 chefs, 25 people just to pack and stack to a field in his garden. And we pulled it off. And so I think that I'm the sort of person that will take on a challenge. Now, I'm very careful what I take on these days because I'm smarter. But those were the days where I used to go to bed at 4 or 5 in the morning and I wake up and I couldn't walk the next day on the Sunday. And so that's a bit of my history now. I'm a little smarter now, and I can project management better. I know what resources I need. And if I do events now, I can normally get a good night's sleep the day before and get a better, sensible time, and so that's where I've got to where I am now. So that's my journey in a very short version of my journey. So there you go.
Thanks for sharing that. I'm curious now. Maybe folks are too young or have never heard of the Roux brothers. But from reality TV, I think people know Gordon Ramsay and Hell's Kitchen.
Yes, that's right.
So was it like that? A little bit like that?
Well, there was less screaming and shouting in the kitchens we were in, but it was incredibly demanding. Incredibly demanding. And so you can't produce anything of quality of any industry unless huge amounts of effort goes into it, whether you are a Premiership football team, whether you are an orchestra that is performing at a very, very high level, you have to put hours and hours and hours of work. And I was listening just recently to Robert Greene, and he read a number of books, including the 48 Laws of Power. And it struck me about 1 or 2 weeks ago that he said, don't do things that you're passionate about, because that's not enough to make you really successful. He said most successful people, there's a lot of boredom involved, the practice and the routine and the training and the development of that skill to be really good at it. And I went, wow. It hit me right in my head and right, just on my forehead. It was like, it's absolutely right. And so to be successful at anything, I run a publication, as you know, called See Vietnam, which is aimed for C-suite. And I thought it'd be a great topic. I'm always thinking about content that would be useful for people. And I think a lot of CEOs know that. They know that running a company looks glorious on the outside, but actually it's pretty routine. It's developing training, it's strengthening the areas of the business that are weak, and it's not necessarily that interesting, and they do it and they take it on the chin. So my advice to anybody that wants to be really good at something is to do things that they're not necessarily passionate about, but they're willing to actually commit to develop and learn. And it's true. When you look at some of the best, most experienced sports stars in the world, or artists, that they have to practice and practice and practice in order to be the best. So there you go.
Is that one of the lessons learned from that
Well, I think I learned it already without realizing it. And when I heard it in those terms, it's like, it's bloody right. We hear Steve Jobs say words to the effect of, if you do something that you truly love, you never have to work another day in your life. Well, I'm sure he had days where he worked incredibly late, very long, to produce what he produced. But here's another one, actually. I listen to a lot of content, as I'm sure you do, Rick. And we hear this term, winners never quit. And somebody in this discussion said, winners quit all the time. And it caught my attention. And you and I both know a lot of successful people being part of the Business Executive Network. And we know successful CEOs that are running very large companies. And they have to quit things all the time. They have to quit time with their children. They have to quit the hobbies that they enjoy, or time with their friends, or the wedding of their classmate, or I had my MBA. I never went to my graduation. I thought, there's better things I can do. Give me the certificate. The graduation was going to be in Australia. And I think a lot of successful people have put aside many things that they really enjoy in order to be really highly successful, even to the point that they spend less time with their children and their families. And I'm not saying it's a good thing, but I think the most successful people are the ones that put enormous amounts of effort into what they're focused on, and they quit and they give up other things. So.
So this is, because I've noticed that on some of the answers you've given, you've used the words better and better. Okay, you've mentioned that 3 or 4 times. Okay, is that linked to the sort of lesson learned? You've got to work very, very hard.
Well, I'm the sort of person at 57 that is always focused on trying to make things better with the organization. Not necessarily for me, but for the organization that I run and the events that we do. And so there are people that will never, in my view, or are more likely to become successful because they're just happy with what they do. And there's people in many teams that are valuable to those teams by the fact they come in and do a job and go home. And in fact, many large companies around the world, multinational companies, have many people like that in their organizations. They need them. But when I look at the highest performing teams in the world, and there's not many of them in the world, there's not many of them in Vietnam, okay? There's good performing teams, and there's, effective teams. But if we look at the highest performing teams in the world, it could be how Manchester City used to be, or Barcelona, or Formula One Grand Prix. You've got to do it quicker, faster, and you're looking for people that can add value all the time. And so, and it's my firm belief, actually, that many multinational companies around the world are not high-performing teams. They're not. But a business is like a machine. It produces at a level that is acceptable. If you were to try and get very high performance, then what happens is your parts wear out. You've got to replace them, i.e. they leave. And so it's really hard. It's almost counterproductive to build high-performing teams, really high-performing teams. And so what you're trying to do is you're trying to build a machine that can produce an output, a service, or a product, and give value so that this machine can give shareholder value. So there you go. I think that if you produce a high-performing team, the resources you need to produce that are so incredible. Let's take a football team, for example. Bayern Munich has just, a year or two ago, signed Harry Kane. I don't remember the fee, but it was more than 100 million euros to hire, and they were expecting 30 goals from him a year. That's an incredibly expensive resource, and that is the transfer fee. Never mind his monthly fee, and so the cost of those goals, when you look at it, are incredibly expensive. And so if you are going to have an elite military force, and you need lots of resources, and so, and it's the same with weaponry such as the F-35 and things like that. So and some people are just happy with mediocre. And but I think those people that really want to earn the big money or be really successful have got to learn to be better, and to be the best, there's a lot of sacrifice. So does that make sense to you? Because it's something I'm coming to be more aware of more recently. And you and I all know people that are running large companies that may not be running those companies in 2 or 3 years' time if they're not growing and learning. So, and they're replaced by people that can run them better. So I think it's better and better is something that never stops.
Okay. Yeah. Now, what are some of the biggest challenges you're facing at the moment?
That's interesting. I think what we're quite good at is looking after our customers, and we're good at organizing the events. I think what we'd like to see is more new customers, new members. Everyone is trying to grow or get new customers. We're not particularly struggling with retaining the customers that we have or keeping them happy, like I said. But I think because of the economic changes that have happened over the last few years, people are looking. Now, we're not trying to diversify what we do too much. We're just trying to grow. And so getting new business to grow is one of the challenges we're facing. Because we are very competitive price-wise, we have to be competitive in how much we pay. So getting the best talent we need at the budget that we have is also a challenge. So if we increase that, then it squeezes what little we make. But my mandate or my goal is to build the go-to place for executive leaders. And so that is the focus. The secondary focus is trying to make a bit of money maybe down the line. So there you go. Does that, yeah. So we're trying to build a machine that produces great events and a place that CEOs want to go to. So, yeah.
Okay. Now, what does success mean to you?
Oh. Well, I've been incredibly focused on the mission of my business. And I'm one that has quit many things. And most of them has been my social life. You know, I'm not one that goes out late very often at all. I'm normally in bed by insanely early time, sometimes 9:30 or 10 in the evening, and sometimes even earlier. And I'm up out of bed at 4:35 in the morning, naturally. It's not like I set an alarm. And I use my first hour of the morning just maybe catching up on the news or listen to a podcast, and then I might open up my laptop and, you know, so I'm thinking about my day. And so you asked me what success is. I think making sure that my main focus is really my business. I do enjoy the weekends, and I enjoy relaxing at the weekends. So like many people that run businesses, I work bloody hard and I'm very focused during the week, and I try to rest and relax at the weekend. And I enjoy watching Premiership football, international football. I enjoy eating out at good restaurants, too much sometimes. I'm not an not high on the alcohol, but I do enjoy a nice glass of red wine occasionally. And so I'm looking forward to slowing down and perhaps building up a succession plan for the business. So there you go. So success, I think for many business leaders is getting their machines, using that metaphor, to work effectively to produce an output.
Okay, but that's for many business leaders. What about you?
Are you talking about success for me personally?
For you personally, yeah.
Well, I'm 57 now. I have to think about retirement in the next 10 years or so. There's a little way to go in order to be ready for that financially. So that might be a good plan. So I've been asked a few times by different people about whether I'd be interested in bringing in an international organization to replace the one that I run, and I've declined those a few times. So I think for me would be good work-life balance. And I think that I wake up every day and go to bed at night enjoying what I do. So yes, so success for me. I wasn't expecting that question, but I think waking up in the morning and going to bed at the end of the day and fitting your day in things that you enjoy doing, that to me would be successful. And that might be fishing or golf in the future, and it might be spending time in the countryside. It might be growing tomatoes. I'm not quite sure, but I'm looking forward to those days when I don't have to wake up and feel a little stressed about the challenges that I have today. So there you go.
Okay, I don't want to make any assumptions, so I won't. So I'm going to ask you the question. Would you like to share some of your life values? I mean, there are a few implied things from your answers before, and maybe others, like me, might be jumping to some conclusions, but I don't like making assumptions.
Go on, make an assumption, Rick. I think I think that when it comes to tasks and responsibilities that I'm given, I'm pretty solid. And I think if you ask me to do something, I might have to consider it carefully if it's a big challenge. But if I'm given it, I do it. And so I'm very reliable like that. And that's why I think people pay quite large sums of money to be part of our network, because they're quite confident in not just my ability and leadership, but the ability and leadership of the organization. So I'm pretty reliable like that. So I think do what you say when you're going to do it. Do what you say and do it when you say you're going to do it. I'm sorry. So I'm pretty reliable like that. I hate breaking a promise. In fact, recently, I promised to make a payment by a certain time, and I couldn't do it. And then I delayed it a second time, and the third time I made the commitment and I made the payment, and I had to go back to that person and apologize for the delay on that. We had an issue with money coming in and some other urgent things that had to be covered, and so I don't like. So I'm very reliable. I think one of the things I've learned is that I'm solid when it comes to that sort of reliability. Did you say life values?
Yeah.
I think that one of the things I've learned in business is it's not all about making money, but really taking care of everybody. And everyone counts. And so I think one of the reasons why a lot of governments are not doing very well at the moment is they're not taking care of everybody. They're taking care of a certain number of, or the few. And I think that's causing a lot of trouble or problems within countries. Won't name any, but you and I are both from one. And I like to see, I think that if you're given a responsibility of power, given a responsibility of running something, then you should do with absolute integrity, and you'll never be bought. Yeah. So if somebody came to me and they wanted me to do something that wasn't quite right, I'd go, can't do it. Sorry. Even if they offer good money for it. So it's just having that integrity. So there you go. So there's a couple of values that I have.
Okay.
Did you pick up something else from my conversation, Rick, that I forgot to mention?
Well, your values are your values.
Yeah.
They come from
Yeah.
you. You know, what I or anyone else sees is just our perception.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what I would also say is I don't rarely have a bad day like I mentioned. And it's because we plan it really well. And in fact, I listened to a lot of material, and I came up with something that that I printed out and put on my wall. And it was something along the lines of, if it's not a fuck yes, it's a no. And what he meant was he's asked to do many things. Might have been hell yes. And what he meant is if somebody asks him to do something, if it's not hell yes, I can really do that, I'd love to do that, then it's a no, because you've got to be wholehearted about it. And in fact, one of the principles I learned in coaching is if it was, I'm not sure whether it was a ICF, International Coaching Federation term or not, but I remember doing some work for a German company once, and I remember seeing a slide. I was going to be the facilitator next time, and it said, if they don't want to be coached, don't coach them, and if you don't want to coach them, don't coach them. And I think the principle is do it or not, but if you do it bloody well. So that's a value that I have. I actually have upset a couple of people in my team because I've asked them to do things and they've not done it and not cared about it. And I've reacted a little bit badly towards it, and they no longer work with me. But actually, either do it with all your heart or not bother at all. So that's a value that I have here.
Well, anyway, to reframe your value, talk about reliability. What you were really talking about was integrity. You know, if you say you're going to do something, do it. If you agree to do something, do it. And it sounds like if you know, you're working with other people and they cross over that line and they don't do it, that triggers you because it's stepping over your boundary.
Yeah. Well, quite frankly, Rick, I mean, we how many five-star hotels are there in Ho Chi Minh City? I'm not sure. Maybe there's 18 or 20. Even within those, we only work with a few, and we're working for those that really deliver high quality of what we want. And we just had an event recently at a five-star hotel who delivered for us, and we're going to do more work with them. And so we don't chance it. We don't chance it just because somebody says they can do it. We have to be sure. We have to be absolutely sure. And occasionally we have a speaker, we have a venue that doesn't quite deliver, and we go, we're not going to go back there again unless, or we're not going to hire that speaker again unless they can really do it. Fortunately now, Rick, we're at a position now that if you do anything for us, it has to be good, otherwise we're not going to even, And so we're very lucky. We're really lucky. But it's taken a while. In the early days, we often had very, so there you go. I hope that's, so we're very careful. We're really careful. And the better we get, the more careful we have to be. So,
okay. All right. Has there been anybody who's been a really huge sort of influence on your career?
That's interesting. There was a leader that I worked with many years ago when I was he was a very mature, experienced person within an organization, very senior and well respected. And I was a young, up and coming guy that wanted to get things done. And I wasn't particularly good at being a leader. And I was particularly good at annoying people around me to try and achieve the goals that I wanted to achieve. And he invited me to his house one Saturday morning for a brunch and helped me see the errors of my way in a really nice, kind way. But he did it in a way that really, first of all, helped me understand, but was also respectful of the fact that my intention was good. But I was trying to get the resources and support that I need to do what I needed to do. And I was pissing off the boss, which is also not a good thing to do. And it was really helpful for me, And so I started to change the way I did things and allow people time to support me instead of being overly bearing, And I was educated on the fact that actually I wasn't the most important person in the organization or the most important person that needed support from the boss. I was probably around, 7th, 8th or 9th on his list of priorities, including customers and shareholders and suppliers and, and all the rest of it. And it was good. I was a very inexperienced, immature, naive person at that time, and he put me right. So I found that really helpful. Yes, he's so that was a person that had a lot of influence on my life. Yeah, I think he also believed in me. There could have been a time when I did that the boss might have thought, this guy's annoying the hell out of me, let's get rid of him. But that didn't happen. They were very supportive of me. So he was a person that really helped me a lot.
What makes you feel inspired to be your best self?
That's a very good question. It's not about me, to be honest with you. If the thing that inspires me the most is, as a person that delivers value or delivers a service, the expectations of me are very high, and therefore I'm motivated by, this is what I'm paid to do. So it's not about me. In fact, despite me, I'm not the sort of person that likes to be, and I don't need it, the praise or the accolade or the recognition. This is what I do, and people pay quite a lot of money to get what they get, and they expect the very best. 20 years ago, I might have gone home feeling very pleased with myself. Now I go home feeling like I did my job. So yeah, I think I'm inspired because that's what I'm here to do. and the expectations are high, and they expect somebody, Rick, if you're asked to do something, or I'm asked to do something, or the head of a international company is asked to do something, they are generally going to do the very best they can. That's why, so I'm motivated because I'm expected to do so.
Oh, so it's not about the money, because what I'm hearing is, this is what you're paid to do. Is it really about that?
Well, it's not about the money. It is my responsibility. I'm given the charge to do that, and I've got it covered.
And is it because it's your responsibility?
Yes.
That's what's really
and
inspiring
and my team suffers as a result of it. They do. It's like, and I've got a great team, and they deliver really. But they also feel, I guess it's a bit like being a head chef of a really big luxurious hotel, and you've got a team of people. Everything's got to go out really, really good, and that's because that's what we do, and that's what people expect. And so it's not about me; it's about focusing on the work. I think a lot of people do fail because they think it's about them. It's about them looking good, and that will motivate you to a certain degree, but it won't get you to the very highest level, in my opinion.
So I'm still going to pick at this a bit more.
Yeah.
So because others have an expectation of you, you feel it's your responsibility, and that's the inspiration behind it? That's what I sort of heard at face value. But I'm suspecting there's something underneath.
Well, I'm a service
that.
provider, and people expect a certain level, and we aim to deliver that or exceed that slightly. We generally, however, deliver what we promise or maybe slightly exceed it. We tend to be very honest about what we think we can deliver as well.
No, I understand.
So,
I mean, you're delivering to the service, you're delivering to the contact, you're delivering to the expectation. But that's the inspiration. That's what makes you feel inspired? Really?
Well, I'm very motivated by that, yes. I wake up every day and I go, right, we've got to deliver, so yes. And this is, I guess, a little bit behind the boredom or the routine. Yes, I think that you remember the seminar that we had with Tan Vu, the international or the Vietnamese ultra marathon runner, who did the Swiss Open and came first in it as the first woman. And she said in that seminar that one of the challenges she has in doing what she does is the boredom. You know, just the swimming and the routine and stuff. And and a lot of people were, wow, you're right, you know. Sometimes you just got to keep on doing it and keep on delivering and keep on doing the same thing, and so yeah, that's it. And I'm that's a little bit like how I am. I think a lot of yes, I think if you and I believe that's what high performing teams must do. If you're going to win the Champions League, you're going to have to practice your set pieces, your fitness, your goalkeeper needs to practice that save again and again. The penalty takers need to, practice the penalties or the free kicks or whatever. It's not particularly exciting stuff. Of course, you get the victories occasionally, but I think it's, being a professional football player, a lot of it's very boring, I would have thought, right? Yeah.
Okay, so let me offer you a different perspective.
Okay.
I heard that what's inspiring you is it's the responsibility and what the organisation does. However, it's also linked to the expectation of the people, the members who happen to be C-level. The perspective that I'll offer you, and I'd like you to comment on, is could it possibly be because it absolutely resonates and is in alignment with your core life value of integrity and reliability?
Professional integrity, yes, I think so. And
I'm going to pick you up on that. There's professional integrity, but from what you've been saying or what you've been sharing, and what I've learned about you from the conversation so far is not just professional integrity. Okay, I suspect you don't go home from work and turn off your professional integrity and suddenly you do not show integrity to others who are not in that professional circuit. Integrity is integrity.
Yes, I think that's true. Yes. I'm not, I think it's an interesting insight. I think that most people, I don't give false compliments. I don't, I tend to be quite a straight talker. If anything, I should be a little bit more confrontational with things that I see, but I'm also respectful that it's not always my case to say the things. And so sometimes I called myself a coward the other day for not bringing up a conversation with somebody that I felt I should have done. Things like that. So, interesting insight. Yeah.
Okay. So, let's change tack a bit. What makes you smile? Apart from that question.
Okay.
Actually, that question made you laugh.
Yeah. When I see, well, I'm very focused on delivering what we deliver. And so what makes me smile is when it's going to plan. When it's going to plan. When you, I have a very young team. And I remember a year and a half ago having a bit of a meeting with them regarding quite a large event. And I wrote on the board 9 out of 10, this is what we're expecting the event to be. And if we do all that we need to do to make that, this will happen. This will not be a surprise. And sure enough, when we completed the event and we had a debriefing afterwards, I asked, how did we do in all areas? And we concluded it was 9 out of 10. We weren't patting ourselves on the back. And so when you plan well, when you make sure you have enough resources, when you have the resources including time, money, staff, equipment, etc., then it's when the machine buzzes and produces the output. Yes. So that makes me smile. Okay. Yeah. Makes me smile when, you know, my favourite football team, Arsenal, do well too, but they don't always do that.
It's a bit like, you remember the old, was it the A team?
Oh, yeah, I wasn't really into the A team. I used to do the MI5, the professionals. Remember that one? Yeah, I used to do the professionals. I wasn't an A team person, yeah. So, yeah, when it all goes to plan.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah. And in fact, when I watch these movies and it doesn't go to plan, I don't enjoy it because I feel really uncomfortable. You know, they do the heist and they get caught and they make silly mistakes and you know, so yeah.
So, that's curious. Okay. If things don't go to plan, if things do go off the rails, if the wheels do fall off the bus, what type of victor do we see then?
Well, first of all, the wheels don't fall off the bus. What's more likely to happen is that you'll have, you know, a humming noise in part of the engine or something, and so something may not go quite right. And so we don't have a very, very bad day, but we're more likely to have, you know, maybe a delay or a mix-up regarding seating plan or some technical issues where the microphone's not working. So they're not so serious enough to not, you know. And I have two types of approaches. I think that sometimes things don't work out. It pours down with rain and, you know, you have less people attend than you'd hope, or there'll be a delay of people getting to the event. But when it comes to the team members, for those that put enormous amounts of effort in, it doesn't work out quite so well. No issue at all. It's when I've had 2 or 3 conversations with them about making sure this is in place and it's not. That's a very different conversation. And I'll try and find out what happened. But when I hear, and this doesn't happen very often, but when I hear, I forgot, I didn't realize you wanted me to do it, or things like that, then, you know, that person and I is not working together for very long. But we all have a bad day. I have a bad day. I don't have that many bad days. And, but I don't, you know, but I don't have many of those people that work as part of my team. I don't have that. And so, or a vendor, et cetera, et cetera. We might get people that we have to turn the heat up under occasionally to make sure we get the quality that we need. So I have been known to get a bit upset. That's an understatement. I'm sure you have no idea what I'm talking about, do you, Rick? Because I'm incredibly focused on the goal. And if we get kicked out of the cup, using the metaphor, that's okay. But if it's because they don't care, that's another problem. And I'm going to meet that person as he comes off the pitch, or she comes off the pitch. And I had someone that worked with us a couple of years ago on probation. And we had place name cards for a big dinner. It was about 180 people, and there were spelling mistakes, and we noticed it before they went on the table. And we had to have them rewritten. We don't put wrong names on the table, particularly when people are paying quite a lot of money for a dinner. And this person, we had a meeting with this person, and we all had to move from our area to sort this person's area out. And she was no longer with us. And she had just one simple task to do, and she didn't care enough for it to do it well. And she's now working in another organization, and good luck to her. But she can't work with us. That doesn't mean to say that people can't change, and they came back and go, we'd like to give it a second chance. But, whatever you do it fucking well. That's all. Just do it thorough. Check the name cards, go through every single one of them. And I can tell, Gordon Ramsay actually said something very interesting on the competition shows that he does. He can tell by the way the chef handles the food as to whether they're a good chef or not, even before they cook. The way they respect the food. It was interesting. And I'm a little bit like that with people that I meet. I wasn't on the interview this morning at 11 o'clock, and there was 2 people interviewing this candidate. And within 5 minutes, I said to the other person interviewing them, I said, if you could take this over now, and I'll maybe join you towards the end. And I put it on side. I just felt this person, and I sense straight away whether this person's going to be adding value to an organization or not. I can sense it. Yeah. And in fact, yesterday I interviewed somebody who lived 15 minutes away from our office. And I wanted to work with this person 9 out of 10. I'm thinking the only problem is he lives a long way, but can we find a solution to this? Maybe we could do a bit of blending working from home, because he was absolutely determined to work for us. And so you get a sense about whether these persons are going to be high performing or not, whether they are going to add value to your organization or not. Yeah. So there you go. So there's a little, I think you can tell by my voice and my focus that I'm looking for people that can add value. And when somebody leaves, we say thank you. And when the next person comes in, they'll take where it is and they'll improve it. It's forever improving. I'm sure it's the same with your own organization, isn't it, Rick? I'm sure
it's the better and better.
Of course. Our magazine, See Vietnam, the first issues were okay. They get better and better, and now we're a little embarrassed by the old ones. I look back at my Facebook photos, and I look back at what I used to do 15, 20 years ago, and I think, gosh. And people come to me and say, I remember you did a workshop for me 20 years ago, and they tell me, and I go, oh my gosh, that's very embarrassing. Come and hear my workshop now. I'm sure you know what I mean, right?
You do realize on Facebook, if you post the photo, you can delete it.
Oh, well, I'm always looking forward, Rick. I do an event, and the photos get published, and I sort of quickly glimpse at them. I'm always like, even with my MBA, okay, I've got to pass it. Let's focus on the next module. I tend to not sit down and massage my own ego too much. I tend to focus on the next thing. And in fact, here's another one. There's a Chinese proverb, and this was shared by a British comedian, and his name escapes me. And he came up with this phrase or this saying, a Chinese proverb. And it is something similar to this: you can't smell the roses on a galloping horse. And what it means is sometimes you go through life so fast, you don't spend time enjoying the smell of the roses. And I feel my life's a little bit like that. I fly into a city, I do an event, have a meeting, get on a plane, come back. I don't enjoy the city. And I think a lot of people that are successful are a little bit like that. And I think there's a cost. And that, I think, is what I give up on. I give up on just sitting down and enjoying. I sometimes sit down and have a meal at an event I'm organizing, and it's food to me, where in fact a chef has sweated for days with a team of other people to produce this. And so I don't smell the roses enough, if that makes sense. So,
Is it worth it? That's
I don't know.
sacrifice?
I don't know. You and I both know somebody who was a very successful regional head of a very large company. And this person, a lady, retired. And she got used to, or had to go through a transition of being a senior executive that had a schedule filled out, to not being that important anymore and getting used to retirement. I spoke to this person, I'm sure you know who I'm talking about, just recently, who said she is really enjoying retirement now. But she did not. She felt, and in fact, she shared it in a meeting, in one of our meetings. It wasn't one that you were at. And somebody said to her, "You're a human being, not a human doing." And she just got used to doing. And so I'm not sure how the transition for me will be. And in fact, she was interviewed for an article for a magazine about retirement. And I've come to the conclusion that we should never fully retire. We should always do stuff that occupies us, even if it's a hobby or even if it's, a sport or, And so that's another story. So I don't know if it's worth it or not, but a lot of successful people sacrifice a lot for their big responsibilities, their big paychecks, and I'm not sure if it is worth it. Yeah, I'm not sure if it is worth it. I don't know whether it is or not. All I know is that's what's required.
Okay, so
Yeah.
let me make an observation for you.
Okay.
I asked, whether it was worthwhile giving up, these meals at some of the events you put on, where the, because you come from the industry, that some chef has sweated over that.
Not into it, but over it.
And I want to couple that with a comment. One comment that you made before is what you do when you're not working, and one of those is you enjoy food, so you sound like a bit of a foodie for me. That was my assumption. Sorry, I'm making an assumption there. And a third thing is when I asked you what does success look like, you started talking about, you got probably about another 10 years to retirement, and you're looking at this life-work balance. Okay? Put all of that together.
You're not a coach, are you, Rick? Is this turning into a coaching session?
I am merely making an observation.
Yeah.
And so you're a foodie, you enjoy food. You're saying success, you've got 10 years to work it out, to achieve this work-life balance. You enjoy food, and yet at events where you're flying in and flying out, you're sacrificing that enjoyment. So when I ask you, is it worth it? And you don't know the answer, maybe it's something to reflect on.
That's a very good question. I had this. Okay, so we have a lot of very successful CEOs that earn big money, and they have big responsibility, and they spend enormous amounts of time running their businesses, and they spend lots of amounts of their time, in addition to that, to going to awards, they go to anniversary events, they get invited to just incredible amounts of events. And so I know some executives that are from 7 in the morning to 10 o'clock at night on the roads, even within the city, or on a plane. I know one lady that travels between Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi frequently. She'll jump on a plane and fly down here for a meeting, then fly back. And that's a massive sacrifice. And in fact, they do put a limit to it. They say the weekends are for my family. And that nothing really encroaches. And so, in fact, in 7 years, we've probably done 3 events at a weekend. And they're normally a ball on a Saturday night. And it might be 2 or 3 in the entire 7 years. So we avoid the weekends. And we try not to do too many evening events so that people can go back and spend time with their children. I don't have the answer to it. And I guess it's a personal choice, isn't it? If you want to be the best at what you do you sacrifice and achieve that. And some people don't. There are some women, for example, that decide to have a family and not go back into corporate rat race. And they're happy earning good money, but not necessarily want the top job. Male executives too, they feel like I don't want to go for the CEO position. There's too much of a sacrifice. Or they're not shortlisted because they're not willing to sacrifice enough. Yeah, so I don't know the answer to that. Be an interesting poll. Yeah.
Well, going back on that, it's one of those comments that you mentioned before. Are you doing or are you being? Okay, so potentially making all these sacrifices is very much on the doing side rather than the being. It also sounds that, you're a coach. Okay, so here's a different perspective or another perspective. Is it an indication of a weak boundary?
Possibly. Now, I don't do many evenings, to be honest with you, and I don't do many weekends. And I was at an event last night, which I really enjoyed, and I spoke to a member of our network who runs a real estate company, a property management company, somebody you and I both know. And he said to me he's going to be enjoying TET by himself in his apartment and enjoy every single moment of it. And I have to say, I do enjoy me time, my time. I enjoy reading. I enjoy listening to podcasts. I enjoy, pottering around, sorting things out, thinking time as well. I enjoy that. And so I feel like I work hard, but I also rest hard and I relax. And so, and there's certain things I need to do a bit more of, like exercise and watch my diet a little bit and what I eat, But I think overall, I actually do enjoy my life. Yeah. So, and I'm able to knock off, if you like, a bit early sometimes and, put on some music and, so I work less hard these days. I'm very job focused. I feel like I'm a captain of a ship. That's what I feel. And I feel like I'm on the bridge and I'm watching things. It's a small ship, but I'm able to, there are some people that will step off that ship and go and play golf or do the things they enjoy. I was speaking to someone that was running a resort in Da Nang who was on the golf course at a birthday party. And so I can, if I need to, step out. Yeah, so.
Okay. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
That's interesting. I think that I think I wish I got here earlier. The journey that I've taken to get to where I am now, and I'm not at any point saying that I've reached success, but I wish I got here quicker. And so I went around the houses a little bit to get to where I am. I think also I've been very focused on learning and developing, but not earning. And so even now, we should be charging far more for what we do. And so I think it's the ability to just push it out a little bit and go, you know what, we have to charge this now. We're not going to suffer this anymore. But we're in a very price-sensitive market here in Vietnam, and budgets are limited. But I think when the days were good, we should have perhaps charged a little bit more for the value. I think I've undercharged in the past because I've enjoyed it and I wanted to do it. And there are people out there that charge far more for what they do. And you and I both know what I'm talking about. There's people that would turn the work down if it doesn't hit the, but I'm happy doing it, and I'll do it at a price that suits both. So I think those are the two things. I'm not sure it's superpower, but I'm not sure what you mean by superpower. I didn't know they existed, actually. Can you give me an example of a superpower? No, when I did my MBA, I didn't come across superpowers. Okay. What's a superpower? Are you talking about like Superman? Yeah.
Well, actually, yes. I recently did a podcast, and the superpower they want is to be able to fly, because they love travel.
Okay. Yeah. No, I think when you're young, the thought of getting on a plane and doing stuff sounds very, very, very appealing. And so I think that's the superpower. And so I think when the days were good, we should have perhaps charged a little bit more for what we do. And so I think those are the two things. I'm not sure what you mean by superpower. I didn't know they existed, actually. wonderful. But but actually, I spend too much time at airports. Not that I fly enormously, but actually being home is where I like to be. And I don't mind traveling if I need to, but it's what I have to do what I do. It's not, I don't enjoy the travel. One thing I would say about travel though, is when you do have a 2-hour flight to Hanoi, you flying to Singapore, whatever, sitting at the waiting in the departure lounge and having that thinking time. I do a lot of good thinking when I travel. I don't know if you do the same. It's time that you haven't budgeted, and I'm not very good at opening up the laptop, but I do a lot of thinking time. So I sort of suddenly I have that aha moment and I write it down. I don't know if you're the same. I find that a really good time. And sometimes I can do a short trip, say to Da Nang or Hanoi, and then I come back and I've got a few ideas from that trip. It's not necessarily from the meeting itself, but that travel time, that thinking time. Yeah.
Possibly on a similar vein, if I granted you 3 wishes, let's get magical now. Okay.
Okay. Could it be US dollars, Vietnam dong, or gold?
Well, they are your wishes. They are your wishes,
Yeah.
and this is pure fantasy. Because if you're going to ask for money, you're not going to get any from it.
Okay.
What would you wish for?
Well, if I had been born with a silver spoon in my mouth, I don't think I would have had the motivation to do what I did to get to where I am. So I'm glad I think, I don't know what your background is, Rick, but when I started off, I wasn't very good and I had to start at the bottom, and I got better and better. And I think that if I didn't have to work because I had the financial resources passed down to me, you wouldn't be interviewing me for a podcast right now. And
So is that your wish?
no,
What's the wish?
No, sorry, you asked about money. And so,
no, I didn't ask about money. I said I'm going to grant you 3 wishes.
So I think that if I was to be granted a wish, it would be to have the financial resources in the next 1 or 2 years. I wouldn't ever need to worry about money ever again. Okay. Yeah, that'd be one of my wishes. And some people already have that. I don't. I'm not sure whether you do, Rick. You're still working very hard, and I'm sure it's not because you love what you do, but maybe it is. Okay, you do. Okay. That'd be one of my wishes. I think it'll probably be for good health. We're getting to an age where many of people that we know of our similar age are not doing so well health-wise, or they're so those are 2 things that come to mind. Yeah.
And your 3rd wish?
Oh, I've got 3 wishes.
Yeah, you got 3. Give it away if you want.
Or, just off the top of my head, perhaps to see what we're doing here in Vietnam scale up and go international. But it's having the financial resources to be able to do that. But I hadn't really thought about that 3rd one in great detail. So if you invite me back in a year's time, it might be a different 3rd wish.
Wonderful. So what is your vision for the future?
Okay. Well, a lot of my vision is to build the go-to place for executive leaders. For me, I think to slow down my pace of life, build up a succession plan for that, and work towards, as I'm probably not going to have the financial resources, infinite financial resources that I don't need to worry about. I just need to make sure that that is ready for me for when I retire in 10 years' time. I'll come and visit you in Switzerland and visit you in your mansion there, and sit in the back of your sports car, and So I think it's just planning for that now, and I've got a lot of young people in my team. Perhaps succession planning for them as well, raising them up. So those are a few of the goals I have for my business, and for me personally, I think it's thinking about the next chapter of my life, which will probably be retiring.
Okay, I know this is, I asked you about vision and you're looking forward. Now, are you seeing any trends that are going on in the market? Because you're connected to, through the network with a lot of movers and shakers, as it were, in all sorts of areas. So are you seeing any trends?
Are you talking about market trends? You're talking about trends with CEOs? Yeah.
You see a trend, you see a trend.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure whether this is necessarily market related. It could just be age related. But one thing I noticed is I'm meeting a lot of people that have years and years of experience, your age and my age, Rick, that are out of work, that are very, very experienced, but the market doesn't have anything for them right now. Now, I'm not sure whether that is market driven or whether that just happens to be a trend that's happened. I haven't noticed it because I've been, 35, 40, 45. And I can't help them. I'm not in the headhunting business anyway. But I see that people are looking for parts for their machine, even if it's a major part, and the CO being a major part, using, again, the metaphor that a business is like a machine, and they're looking for high-performance parts, if you like, or good parts that are cost-effective to make that machine work without it necessarily being, very, very expensive. And so I've seen that. And some people have had to take jobs and salaries or jobs that perhaps they're overqualified for, or they start their own business. I get given business cards sometimes by people that the CEO of their company, and I ask about it, and actually it's a 3-man company, and and I see that it's now. I think it's become very disruptive. The market is very disrupted, and so I've noticed that, and so I think that you and I are both self-employed. We're not like to lose our job unless our business go under. But if you're working for corporate now, I think they're looking for efficiency.
Interesting. What's the most unusual experience you've ever had in business?
Well, in business, I would regard myself to be high integrity. And when I first came to Vietnam some 20 years ago, I got involved with a few business ventures. And I didn't hire people with high integrity. And they made a lot of money, or much more money than they should have done, by being dishonest. And it hit me. I almost didn't believe that this was happening until I realized that it was. And I think that things are getting a little better these days. It was the Wild West 20 years ago. You've been here longer than me. And the Wild West being that people, they fended for themselves. And I remember speaking to one CEO who contacted or had an employee that basically took advantage of him, and I'm not sure that he stole money, but lacked integrity and set up a business with resources that he had provided him through his work. And when he phoned the father up, the father said, "How much did he gain from working with you?" And he told him, and he said, "Good for him." He was proud of his son. And so I think that I don't think I think that one thing that shocks me is there's people here that are out to get you. People here, people everywhere, but that's and so you got to be careful who you trust. And those I do trust. I really trust. Those I trust. I really trust. And so just be aware that people will often exaggerate their skills. People will see whether they can, benefit from their position through purchasing, kickbacks that they might have through maybe demos on the payroll and all that sort of stuff. So I had a significant hit when I first came here. Significant hit. So there you go. That was a shock to me.
So that was very unusual from a business perspective. Maybe a bit of a shock for a newer life view where your core value is integrity. So maybe there's an assumption that everyone has a basic level of integrity, right? Which is probably why it felt more painful to you than maybe to others. But anyway, that's business. What's the most unusual experience you've ever had in life in general?
Wow. In life, unusual experience. I think nothing springs to mind at the moment, Rick. Yeah, I sometimes look. I mean, I think life teaches us a lot of things through failures and defeats. Nothing comes to mind right now.
Could you share something with us that's about you that most people don't know?
Well, I'm a little bit of a showman when it comes to facilitation. Not that I seek the spotlight, but I know how to turn it on when I need to. But I'm actually very comfortable not being in the spotlight. I'm very comfortable just being behind the scenes, packing and stacking the boxes. Yeah.
Doing the boring stuff.
Doing the boring stuff. I'm very much an operations person, actually. When I studied business, operations management, I did quite well at. And so I'm very happy for other people to take the limelight. And but I'm also comfortable if I need to step in there and do it. But I do it as a necessity as opposed to something that I desire. There are some people that absolutely desire the limelight. That's not me. Yeah, so I think that people might find that a bit unusual. But when people get to know me a bit better, they realize that that is how I am. But actually, if you look at my social media, I'm seen as a bit of a socialite, but I'm not really. I just post photos on tagged on stuff of things that I go to. So that's, yeah. And I'm not sure whether I'm, so there are some people that are actually, what was the term used? It was, I forget what it is now. There's extrovert and introvert, that's right. I guess that, I actually enjoy spending time by myself. Now I go to birthday parties and I go to special occasions like weddings and stuff, but I'm not the sort of person that will want to go out all the time. I enjoy quiet time.
You're more of an introvert, or you are introverted, although you're an ambivert, so you can turn it on if you needed to, but that's not your default.
That's right, yes. And actually, one thing I've learned about, and I think you and I have had this conversation, that I used to use humor a lot in my facilitation. And one thing you said to me is just to be careful with that humor, because a lot of very successful people tend to be quite serious. They tend to not want to muck around a lot. Now, I think I've got the balance right now. I have a bit of fun and I put the joke in there occasionally. But most successful people that I know, the highly successful people, don't even need to say it. Their numbers speak for themselves. And those that are the would-be successful people are the ones that like to tell everyone how successful they are. And so I think that, I can tell very quickly when I meet somebody whether they really, I can pick up things subconsciously. So so I'm not easily impressed by words. Yeah.
That's interesting. You triggered a thought. I attended a luncheon from Ben, and you facilitated it. And you did an exercise, okay? And I used literally the same exercise at a workshop recently. Recently, and your comment just there about those additional comments triggered this thought. And the exercise was, you took the 20 sort of undesirable behaviors or limiting beliefs or career limiting things. For Marshall Goldsmith, what you got you here won't get you there.
That's right.
And one of them is adding those additional comments, those witticisms, okay, which to the speaker may sound good, but you've just proven, okay, it's actually
that was what we had at the Sofitel in that little dining room, right? That's right. Yeah. We got the sheet out with the, I think it was the 20 behaviors.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the 20 from the book What Got You Here Won't Get You There from Marshall Goldsmith. I did a similar workshop a week later, I think, with about 40 executives, and we discussed we discussed the same. So yes, and I think there's one or two that stand out to everybody. They should do at least.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
But the point is on that was your comment of those. One of them was about adding those little witticisms.
Are you challenging me, Rick?
No, but you said you've curbed that. All right.
Well, I still use a sense of humor, but I feel like I got it right a little bit. I'm not, you know, I do enjoy a bit of edutainment, you know, facilitainment. I like to have a bit of fun, putting the wit in, and I have to keep an eye on it. It's not everyone's cup of tea. My son Tim gave me some feedback that he likes it a little bit more serious, and some people do. So I've you know, yeah.
Okay, so Victor, if people want to get hold of you, what's the best way of connecting with you?
The Business Executive Network is got a Facebook page.
Okay.
You can go to my LinkedIn, Victor Burrill. There's only 2 of us in the world, I think. And the
Only
other
2? All right.
Well, I'm
Doppelganger?
Well, I went to Facebook, and there's another Victor Burrill in the US. And I added him as a friend, and so I'm a Victor Burrill too. He didn't accept my friend request, which was quite interesting. So there may be maybe only 2 that I know of. And
Folks, we'll put all of this in the show notes. So you
that's
don't have to
lovely,
remember
yes,
it all.
yes.
Yeah.
And
So LinkedIn, Facebook.
that's right. If you type my name, you might just Google it, and you might find me too. So
Okay,
so,
so he's not the Victor Burrill in the US. He's the Victor Burrill in
I
Vietnam.
thought there's another Victor Burrill. I reached out, and he never accepted my friend request.
Okay. That's pretty unusual that there are only 2 in the world. Okay.
That's right. Yes.
With like the 7 or 8 billion people that we have. Okay.
Yeah.
That's unusual. So, in closing, what's one question that you wished that I'd asked you, but I never did? And how would you answer it anyway? Because I know you've got a lot of questions written down there. You've got a whole lot of notes here, folks.
Well, I wrote a few things down. I think I've covered most of the things I wanted to say. With your email to me, Rick, you asked me to. You asked me to. One of the goals of this podcast was to really mentoring or inspiring the next generation. And what I would say is that I guess the question would be, what advice would you have for somebody that's quite young in life that wants to be successful? Yeah.
Great question.
Yeah.
How would you answer that?
And I would say, perhaps to summarize some of the things I've covered here today is learn and improve. Learn and improve. Don't get a job, but get a career. Work in places that you can learn and develop if you want to be successful. And some people out there don't want to be successful, and that's fine. You just want to have a job and you want to work to live. But if you want to be really successful, then learn to improve and never stop improving, even when you get to the latter parts of your career. Be customer focused. Jeff Bezos says that Amazon, he became the richest man in the world. I don't think he is now. He might be in the top 3. That Amazon is the most customer-focused organization on the planet. And they just focus. He didn't focus on competition. I think that don't obviously enjoy what you do, but realize there's a lot of boredom in being successful, and a lot of practice. And I think it's really important, if you're going to keep doing things and training, make sure you do something that you really want to do. It'd be really a shameful thing to keep practicing and learning and training for something that you don't eventually want to do. So do something you enjoy, but realize there's a lot of boredom in that. Be very focused. And I guess the last thing is quit. If you want to be very successful, think about what it is you want to quit in order to achieve your goal of success, whatever that may be. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you very much, Victor. So on that last note, it sounds like, what you've been saying throughout, you need to get better and better. And on that last point, it's time to quit this podcast. We've come to the end. Thank you very, very much, everybody, for joining. All Victor's contact details will be in the show notes. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for joining. and we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks, Victor.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you.